Good evening. I want to start this evening's reading off with maybe a little prologue, maybe an unusual touch. This is a poem that comes from a popular publication written by Ellery Akers, Ellery, E-L-L-E-R-Y, A-K-E-R-S. I think that's a woman's name. It's called Love in Our 70s. We've been together 2 years now. I've seen you with a plastic shield over your eyes after the cataract operation. Your surgeon's initials inked above your eyebrows so that the interns could wheel you into the right room. You see me crying in my old flannel nightgown. Sometimes I don't brush my teeth before we kiss. But I still touch your cold ears when you come back from a walk and think they're beautiful. I still love the slope of your back just before it flares into your buttocks. For years I was so lonely, I told my friends, I just want to hear someone cough in the next room. And one morning you coughed in the bathroom and woke me up, and I was annoyed. Then I started laughing. I love the way you fold your hands when we meditate together. The same hands, worn and cracked with age, that stroke my thighs. Sometimes I sneak a look at you so that I can see your closed eyes, your wish to be still. We don't take each other for granted because we know we're old. Sometimes when we're bird watching, field guides, binoculars, happy to be looking at egrets or green-winged teal, I think one of us is going to die first. Once, years before I met you, I was so angry, I hit my punching bag hard enough to dent the wall behind it. There were flakes of plaster all over the floor. I've never seen you furious, though I've seen you exasperated at the news. I've never heard you say anything mean. You don't have a mean bone in your bodies. I do. I have a mean bone. Every so often we fall into a disappointment, and it feels as if we're falling into a ditch wet with rain. I love that you read 6 books at once. I love that you always say to your dog, enjoy your dinner. I no longer put my hairbrush on top of your hairbrush in the bathroom as a way to flirt. But we laugh when we bump into each other in the hall. And sometimes when I lift the gray hair at the back of your neck and kiss your shoulder, I think, this is it. The last time I had a reading, I read something called The Insensitive Society. And I hope that those of you who are following this will take this as an illogical way to follow that poem. The U.S. has had at least 314 mass shootings so far in 2022. 12 hours ago, the United States is an unfortunate outlier as people across the country beg for gun reform. Families of gun violence victims testified July 4th, 2022. There were more than a dozen mass shootings in the U.S. over the 4th of July weekend, including one at a parade in Highland Park, Illinois, where at least 6 people were killed and 2 dozen others were injured. The big picture. The weekend of gun violence resulted in the deaths of at least 15 people and injuries to 91 others, according to data from the nonprofit research group, the Gun Violence Archive. The Gun Violence Archive has recorded more than 300 mass shootings this year, in which at least 4 people were killed or injured. Zoom in. In the Chicago area, at least 57 people were shot and 9 were killed over the weekend, NBC Chicago reports. The attack at the Highland Park 4th of July parade was the largest and most high profile. 13 people were shot and 3 were killed in 6 incidents in New York City, per NBC New York. In Minneapolis, Minnesota, 8 people were injured on Monday in a shooting at Boom Island Park, per a local CBS affiliate. A shooting in Kenosha, Wisconsin resulted in the deaths of at least 1 person and injuries to 4 others. And another shooting in Sacramento, California on Monday left at least 4 injured. 4 people were also injured in shootings in Boston and Kansas City, Missouri, while 6 people were injured in a shooting in Richmond, Virginia. There were also mass shootings in South Carolina, Washington, Arizona, North Carolina, South Carolina, Washington, Arizona, North Carolina, and Texas over the holiday weekend, per the Gun Violence Archive. The Gun Violence Archive has counted at least 314 mass shootings in the U.S. so far in 2022. More than 22,000 people have died due to gun violence overall in 2022, according to the archive. An expert told Insider it's difficult to predict whether this year will be deadlier than last year. The United States is an unfortunate outlier. As people across the country beg for gun reform, families of gun violence victims testified before Congress last month for tightened gun control legislation. Mass shootings keep on occurring and at a frenetic pace. Just over a week after President Joe Biden signed a bipartisan gun reform bill into law, 6 people were killed and more than 30 others were injured following a mass shooting during a U.S. Independence Day parade in Highland Park, Illinois on Monday. Authorities arrested a 22-year-old man who was named a person of interest in connection to the incident after a 2-hour manhunt. There were 13 mass shootings in the first weekend in June, fewer than 2 weeks after a gunman killed 19 students and 2 teachers in elementary school in Uvalde, Texas, marking a deadly school shooting since Sandy Hook Elementary School in 2012. There were 13 mass shootings in the first weekend in June. The Gun Violence Archive, a nonprofit that tracks shootings in the U.S., has recorded at least 314 mass shootings in 2022 so far. Gun violence overall has killed at least 22,000 people in the United States this year so far, according to the archive records. The United States has far more lax firearm laws and policies compared to other countries. The federal right to own a firearm is even baked into the Constitution via the Second Amendment. Gun laws and regulations also vary from state to state. Some states have more restrictive laws, while some allow for much greater firearm ownership rates for protection and hunting. In a country like ours, we have a lot of guns. R. Thurman Barnes, the assistant director of Rutgers University's New Jersey Gun Violence Research Center and faculty at the Rutgers School of Public Health, told Insider. And when you have so many guns as we have, which we have more guns than people, we're going to have more gun violence in all of its forms. As a result, firearms have become one of the leading causes of death for Americans of any age. And according to Giffords Law Center, they're also the leading cause of death for children below the age of 18. Different sources differ on the definition of a mass shooting, but the Gun Violence Archive and the Congressional Research Service defined it as an incident where 4 or more people were shot, not counting the shooter as a victim. This table includes the names, locations, and casualty information from each mass shooting the Gun Violence Archive has recorded in the U.S. so far in 2022. You can view a report of any shooting incident by visiting the list on the Gun Violence Archive's website. Historically, mass shootings tend to happen in the latter half of the year. There have been slightly fewer mass shootings so far in 2022 than 2021. In 2021, the Gun Violence Archive recorded 692 mass shootings and found that gun violence overall killed 45,010 people. Barnes told Our Insider that it's difficult to know if there will be more mass shootings in 2022 compared to last year. I think what we can say is that whatever number we settle on this year, we probably won't be far off to where we've been in the previous year. We're in June. We're north of 220-something mass shootings, Barnes said. It's my prayer that we don't reach to 600 plus that we had the previous year. I started off the reading with the poem Love in Our 70s. So what I can say is that it's a poem written by a woman who was in her 70s, talking about the long, illustrious love life she had with someone. And that's something that's not likely to happen to so many of the people who are younger than 70, who will never know what it could have been with someone they loved if they had lived to their 70s. And I'll just leave it at that.
And all the people that have been killed already will never know such joy.
They won't be writing poems like this. On that note, I'd like to end it by saying we'll be back next week, probably on Tuesday. So much is happening that we hesitate to use this time to do, well, what can I say, egotistical things like read our works. But then I've been told by a whole bunch of people, no, don't stop doing that, because that's one of the things that the violence in our lives will force us to do, which is to live abnormally.
But it's also important to recognize what is going on, acknowledge what's going on, and keep on moving, keep on trucking. I say, and itness. Thank you, Odie Hawkins.
Thank you.
The website, www.odiehawkins.com, where a lot of commentary can be found in novels. Ciao.